Today's scene, I just wanted to share this with you. It's quite a simple scene, but yet there's quite a few details in. Hold on, let me zoom in for you. So as you can see, um, there's a fair bit of details in there. It's quite a nice scene, and there's nice backdrop with trees and lots of greenery surrounding this building. So let me get started with the first wash. So of course for the first wash I'm not going anything too dark, just covering the white of the paper, getting rid of that, and going for the lightest tones of green. You can see there's a bit of light coming through the trees. It's quite a nice, bright, vibrant, sort of yellowy lime green, and that's shining through the trees, and that also comes down at the foot of the buildings. So I'm just placing some of that colour also at the bottom of the paper. So just going in, adding some of the slightly darker mix of greens for the trees, and that's what I'll be doing all across the top side of the paper. The paper that I'm using is Ash watercolour paper. It's actually an artist block, and that's £140 cold press. It's got a nice feel to it, nice and nice texture to it. So while I'm doing some of these trees, one of the good things to do is use a fairly dry brush, and that gives you a nice texture for trees and shrubbery as the paint sort of just covers the surface and sort of hits and misses. So you get that nice uneven sort of broken texture, which is always nice in watercolour. So I'm just going ahead and filling out the rest of the top of the paper. And there's no sky in this scene at all, and the scene I'm actually looking down. So from a hillside, this is the view looking down onto the scene. So there's no sky holes to leave for the trees. That's what I'd usually do with a scene like this, just leave holes here and there in the trees, and that's where the sky would show through. So keeping things quite nice and light and also quite loose, just cutting around and going around the buildings. There's a little sort of outhouse or garage or something on the left hand side. You can see it just disappearing off the paper. So I'm just cutting around there and going around the cottages or buildings with this green, and I'll just slowly start to build up the darker tones, giving nice shadows within the trees, and that'll help also with the building to stand out somewhat. So it's a nice quite white building, although it's a tiny bit in shadow, so I'll be looking for a slightly blue cast for the building. And you got some nice warm sunlit sort of areas hitting the scene. As you can see on the right hand side, I'm just adding some of that yellow, and that does really it just really does take your eye to that sort of right hand side, the nice warm yellow seeping through. I'm just hitting the paper here and there, just covering, get rid of all those bits of white that you may or may not be able to see. Just carefully cutting around the chimneys and the rooftop. I want to keep that as clean as possible. One of the important things to remember is when you're doing watercolour, when you're cutting around buildings or anything like that, if you squeeze out your brush and just mop up the beading that forms just on the bottom side of the paint itself, you can see there's little puddles forming. You just want to rinse out your brush, get a fairly dry brush, and just run along those little puddles and get those out. Just saves them creating any problems for you, any backwash or any cauliflowers later on during the painting process. So that's just one thing you can look out for. And I'm using not a large brush, but a fairly decent size of a mop brush, and just covering, just getting rid of the white for now. You may have noticed there was a bit of a switch. I did forget to press record, forgot to carry on recording, as I often do. Sometimes when you have a little breather or a little break, when you go back in to start again, just always remember to press record. It may be useful for you. So just going in with a darker mix of green now. I've added some French ultramarine to the green that I've mixed, and just giving those shadows to each tree and giving separation to those trees that I've done. Okay, I think I'll go ahead and put this video in time lapse. So if you do have any questions on any of the materials that I'm using, just drop us in the comments section. Any thoughts, any comments, always welcome. And if you're new to my channel and like what you see, then don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I'll be posting more videos such as this on a regular basis.